You will be shocked to learn what truly unfolded after Jamal Roberts was crowned the winner of American Idol. The stage was electric, cheers echoed through the arena, confetti rained from above, and millions at home watched as his eyes welled up with emotion. With trembling hands and a grateful heart, he gave thanks to God, his mother, and the loyal fans who stood by him. On the surface, it felt like the perfect ending, a storybook moment brought to life. But behind the bright lights and beaming, smile lay a deeper reality, one that the cameras never captured and no one dared to mention. This is the moment everything shifted in a way no one saw coming. Jamal had not just claimed a title, he had entered a world layered with complexities and shadows he never anticipated. While the public believed he walked off stage with $1 million contract and a golden future, the truth was far less glamorous. What if I told you the true reward was not what everyone assumed? It was something far more unexpected and possibly even more costly. Most fans assumed that Jamal's victory guaranteed him a lifetime of luxury, mansions, flashy cars, world tours, and the glamorous lifestyle everyone dreams of. But the reality was quite different. That kind of success did not arrive overnight. For many winners before him, it never truly came at all. Just like those who had walked the same path before, Jamal faced a harsher truth beneath the glittering surface. Like many talented artists before him, Jamal Roberts was presented with what appeared to be a golden ticket to stardom, a lucrative record contract, a generous cash advance, and the invaluable opportunity to introduce his voice and artistry to a global audience. At first glance, it seemed as if Jamal had just secured everything any aspiring singer could dream of after winning a prestigious competition like American Idol. Yet, beneath the glittering surface of this seemingly perfect prize lay a complex reality hidden deep within the fine print of that contract, which left even the most loyal and enthusiastic fans stunned and disillusioned. The advance that Jamal was given by the record label was indeed a substantial sum. Reports indicated that winners could receive anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000, depending on the conditions specified in their agreements. However, this lump sum was not a simple reward or an outright gift for his victory. Rather, it functioned much more like a loan, a financial obligation that Jamal was expected to repay through the success of his upcoming album and related projects. This meant that the advance was essentially an investment from the label, provided upfront to help produce and promote Jamal's music, but one that came with strings attached and serious consequences if sales and streams did not meet expectations. This distinction is critical because many fans and observers naturally assume that winning such a high-profile competition would automatically grant the artist financial freedom and a worry-free path to fame. In truth, however, the music industry operates like a business, and the money given to artists at this stage is part of a larger financial ecosystem designed to minimize risks for the label and maximize their control over the artist's career. The advance serves as a way for the label to fund recording sessions, marketing campaigns, tour expenses, wardrobe, and other necessary costs that support the launch of an artist's career. But the catch is that all these expenses, including the advance, must be recouped before the artist sees any real profit. For Jamal, this meant that while the figure might have sounded impressive, the reality was far less glamorous. Once the advance was paid out, a large portion of it quickly disappeared in various deductions. Taxes claimed a significant share right away, shrinking the amount that Jamal could actually use. Beyond that, agents, lawyers, and managers all took their respective percentages as part of their fees for handling his career, further reducing his take-home amount. By the time all the necessary cuts were made, Jamal might have been left with less than $100,000 in actual cash, a far cry from the headline number that made the rounds in news stories and social media. But the financial challenges were only the beginning. The contract that Jamal signed also gave the label almost complete control over his music and public image. This meant that decisions about the style of songs he would record, the producers he would work with, the collaborators he would team up with, and even how he was presented in photo shoots and interviews were largely dictated by the label's executives. Jamal had little say in these matters and was essentially bound to follow the label's vision for him, whether it aligned with his own artistic identity or not. Perhaps most frustratingly, Jamal was locked into a multi-album deal, which meant He was contractually obligated to produce a certain number of albums for the label before he could walk away or renegotiate terms. If one album failed to perform commercially, he still had to continue producing music under the same restrictive conditions or face steep financial penalties for breaking the contract early. This arrangement created a high-pressure environment where artistic creativity was often sacrificed for commercial viability and where the label's priorities, usually driven by market trends and profit margins, overruled the artist's personal vision. This business model, while common in the industry, often catches new artists off guard. For Jamal and others like him, the dream of using their talent to inspire and connect with fans becomes complicated by the harsh realities of the commercial music machine. What seemed like a golden opportunity initially soon started to feel more like a trap, where the freedom to create was limited and the financial pressures were constant. Moreover, the expectation that success would come easily after winning the show was misleading. Many past winners had found that immediate stardom was fleeting, and sustaining a career required far more than just a victory on a televised contest. The music industry's focus on quick returns meant that artists were pushed to release singles and albums rapidly, often before they felt fully ready, in an attempt to capitalize on their moment of fame. When those releases failed to meet sales expectations, many winners were quietly dropped by their labels, left without the support they initially had, and forced to find new paths, sometimes returning to regular jobs outside of music. Jamal's experience mirrored this pattern. Despite the excitement surrounding his win and the initial hype, the reality of the music business soon set in. The money he was given up front was conferences, creating the illusion of excitement for those watching from afar. Yet beneath every public appearance was a rigid, unforgiving schedule over which Jamal had zero control. Every moment was meticulously orchestrated by the label's team. He had to smile on cue, deliver rehearsed answers, and maintain the image they had crafted. Fatigue, stress, or feeling overwhelmed made no difference. The show had to go on. The pressure only intensified as weeks went by. Studio sessions grew longer, and producers were brought in who didn't truly grasp Jamal's authentic style. Raised on gospel, soul, and heartfelt ballads, Jamal was now being steered toward pop. Bright, catchy, radio-friendly songs that barely reflected the artist he truly was, or his unique voice. Whenever Jamal tried to raise his concerns, he was quickly reminded of the contract's iron grip. "This is what sells," they told him. "Trust the process." But beneath the surface, Jamal was beginning to feel less like an artist and more like a commodity. Then came the first warning signs invisible to fans. Rumors began to swirl that Jamal was growing frustrated with the musical path forced upon him. Insiders whispered about clashes behind closed doors. He fought for creative control, but the label consistently shut him down. With every setback, the weight of expectation only grew heavier. The label had invested heavily and demanded swift returns. If Jamal failed to deliver, their interest would quickly fade. Jamal understood this all too well. He had witnessed the fate of previous winners, their albums flopping and then being quietly dropped without a word. Meanwhile, fans remained clueless, eagerly demanding new music with tweets like, "Where is Jamal's debut single?" But Jamal had no answers. He was trapped in an exhausting loop of rewrites, reshoots, and relentless studio deadlines. He couldn't share what he truly wanted, say what he felt, or even take the rest he desperately needed. Once a rising star, he was now under constant surveillance and micromanaged at every turn. To make matters worse, people from his past began surfacing unexpectedly, distant relatives, old acquaintances, and even strangers claiming to know him, all suddenly asking for favors or money, help, money, favors, and attention. Some even threatened to reveal private information if he ignored them. It was a whirlwind of chaos that could overwhelm anyone, and Jamal was barely holding himself together. He longed for the simpler times before fame, when music was a source of healing instead of a fight for survival. Just as things seemed to reach their breaking point, an unexpected event shook everything: a leak. One of Jamal's unreleased tracks surfaced online, and the response was electric. Raw, emotional, And completely unlike the polished pop the label pushed, the song resonated deeply with fans. It spread rapidly across social media, igniting a wave of support and hope for the real Jamal to shine through. The reaction was so powerful that it reached the label, but instead of excitement, anger took hold. The leak was unauthorized, and Jamal was held responsible. Suddenly, he faced possible repercussions. Rumors began swirling about delays to his album, with some insiders suggesting the label might even shelve his entire project. Jamal felt trapped in a game he never chose to play. Yes, the fame was real, but the freedom? That was an illusion. As the leaked track gained momentum online, fans grew more eager than ever. They clamored for the full album, applauding Jamal's raw honesty and distinct voice. Hashtags trended, and his name flooded social media platforms. But inside the label's offices, the mood was far from celebratory. Instead of praise, executives held emergency meetings. Jamal was summoned and interrogated as if he were a suspect, caught in a storm he never saw coming. They demanded to know how the song had leaked. Jamal firmly denied any involvement, and those close to him believed his innocence. Yet, the label was not interested in the truth. They only cared about maintaining control. To make matters worse, whispers began circulating within the industry that Jamal was difficult to work with. The label quietly fueled these rumors through a whisper campaign spread via back channels. Some producers distanced themselves. Promotional opportunities vanished, and doors that had been wide open just weeks before suddenly slammed shut. Jamal's status shifted from rising star to risky investment, all because he refused to fit into the mold the label wanted to impose. Meanwhile, Jamal's personal life was unraveling. Shortly after his win, he had relocated to Los Angeles, hoping for a fresh start, but the pressures from every angle began to take their toll. But every time he submitted ideas, they thought moving to Los Angeles would bring him closer to the heart of the music world, but instead it only deepened his isolation from old friends, his church community, and the roots that once grounded him. He found himself trapped in a luxurious apartment that felt less like a home and more like a gilded cage. The nights were quiet, but far from peaceful. Though cameras captured his smiling face behind the scenes, he was quietly unraveling. Then came the most devastating blow. Jamal discovered that someone he trusted deeply, someone from his inner circle, had been secretly feeding information back to the label. Private conversations, texts, moments of frustration he believed were safe, all had been shared without his consent. This betrayal shook him to his core, leaving him unsure of who he could trust. The dream he once chased was morphing into a nightmare, and those closest to him felt like strangers. Yet despite everything, Jamal refused to give up. He spent countless late nights writing songs, pouring his soul into every lyric. But whenever he presented his ideas, they were met with rejection. His songs were dismissed. Too emotional, too slow, too personal. The label wanted catchy, polished, commercial hits. So Jamal played along. He recorded what they demanded and forced smiles when told to smile. But with every performance, a little more of his spirit drained away. Then, just as fans eagerly asked again about his album, news broke. Jamal's debut project had been quietly delayed again. No new release date, no explanation, only silence. Fans began to worry. Blogs speculated about mental health struggles. Others pointed to behind-the-scenes label conflicts. Yet the full truth remained hidden because Jamal was not permitted to speak out. Even worse, the money situation was grim. Though he had fame, his bank account told a different story. He was not earning from his music. The label owned everything, and most of Jamal's income was swallowed up repaying expenses. Travel, housing, wardrobe, marketing, all covered up front by the label, but now deducted from his earnings. Everything came with a cost, and that cost was slowly, steadily taken from him, bit by bit. Jamal's dream had turned into a business deal, one that left him famous, but far from free. As time passed, Jamal Roberts came to understand that winning American Idol was just the start of a far more challenging road. The dazzling lights and roaring applause of the finale faded quickly, replaced by grueling hours in the studio, endless meetings, and relentless pressure from the label. The contract he signed was not just a golden ticket, it was a heavy chain. The label dictated which songs he could record, when he could release them, and even how he was allowed to present himself to the world. The creative freedom every artist longs for slipped farther and farther out of reach. Here's the most startling truth. Despite all the fanfare around his victory and the headline-making contract, the actual money Jamal took home was far less than anyone imagined. Taxes, management fees, agent cuts, and other expenses devoured the majority of his earnings. A significant portion of his prize money disappeared almost immediately. That $500,000 advance Jamal received was not free money. It was more like a loan he had to repay through album sales and streaming revenue before seeing any actual profit. This meant Jamal had to work harder than ever just to break even. The harsh reality of the music industry hit him hard. Here's where things get even more interesting. Jamal's true income relied heavily on live performances and endorsements, not just record sales. Touring wasn't simply about singing on stage. It meant pouring money into travel, production, and paying staff. Without a strong and loyal fan base, tours could easily cost more than they made. Brand deals sounded promising, but only if Jamal managed to keep the public's attention and maintain a positive image. It was a delicate, constant balancing act between pursuing fame and staying authentic to himself. Destiny took a surprising turn when Jamal chose to push back against some of the label's strict restrictions. He began collaborating with independent artists and producers, seeking a way to reclaim his creative freedom. Producers who truly believed in Jamal's distinctive voice stepped up, ready to help him craft music that reflected his true self. This choice was a bold gamble. Walking away from the label's financial backing and massive marketing machine meant risking everything. Yet, Jamal was resolute in reclaiming control of his career and forging a real bond with his fans. The most surprising part? This independent path started to pay off. Jamal's self-released tracks drew in loyal listeners who admired his sincerity and heartfelt passion. Gradually, he rebuilt his career from scratch, showing the world that succeeding in music goes far beyond just winning a TV competition. It demands grit, genuine expression, and relentless dedication. Behind the scenes, Jamal's experience reveals that fame is rarely straightforward. Often, the toughest battles begin once the cameras stop rolling. Now, here's a question for you. What are your thoughts on Jamal's journey? Did you imagine that winning American Idol would be so complex? Have you ever encountered a situation where everything seemed perfect outwardly, but was very different behind the scenes? Share your stories and reflections in the comments. We would love to hear from you. We want to hear from you. If this story opened your eyes, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more revealing stories about the music industry and your favorite stars. Your support makes it possible for us to bring you the truth behind the headlines.